I'm not the kind of guy who normally vents on the internet, but after what happened, I need to let it out somewhere. Maybe someone here will understand. Maybe someone else has lived through the same kind of silent nightmare. Because let me tell you, betrayal doesn't start with lipstick on a shirt or a text you weren't supposed to see. Sometimes it begins with a simple sentence that feels like a blade to the gut. My name's Curtis. I'm 39. I've been married to Dana for 11 years. We met during a snowstorm in Denver. And yeah, I was the idiot who offered her my coat even though I was freezing too. She laughed, said chivalry wasn't dead, and offered to buy me a hot coffee. In return, that was the start of everything. I fell in love with the way she lit up a room, the way her eyes narrowed when she smiled. I was all in from the beginning. And for most of our marriage, I thought she was too. I'm a data analyst. Boring. I know. I work long hours, but I always made time for our date nights, family birthdays, or just staying up with her to binge terrible true crime shows. She's in marketing, one of those fast-talking, always networking types. Started working from home 2 years ago, and that's when things started to shift. First, it was subtle. She'd stay on calls late, close her laptop when I walked in, smile a little too wide when texting. But I brushed it off, told myself not to be one of those jealous, controlling husbands. I trusted Dana. She was my best friend. But last month, I found a receipt in the trash for a fancy Italian place we'd never been to together. 2 entrees, 2 drinks, and a dessert. I know she's allergic to tiramisu. She hates tiramisu. But there it was, half-eaten in the picture she accidentally uploaded to our shared cloud. The one labeled Team Building Night. There were only 2 glasses in that photo, 2 plates. Still, I said nothing. I told myself it was a work thing. I even tried to plan a getaway weekend to reconnect, just the 2 of us. I booked a cabin, cooked her favorite meals, and played our old playlist on the drive up. She smiled, laughed, even kissed me like nothing was wrong. But I noticed her phone buzzing at 2 a.m. She picked it up and walked outside. Stayed out there for 20 minutes, came back, and acting like she was cold, crawled into bed without a word. I laid there, eyes wide open, pretending to sleep, heart pounding like a war drum in my chest. Last Tuesday, she sat me down after dinner. She looked excited, nervous even. She curled her hair that day, wore lipstick. I thought she was going to surprise me, tell me she was pregnant, maybe. But instead, she looked me dead in the eyes and said, I have a date. I just wanted to be honest. My whole body froze. I blinked once, twice, and then I did something she never expected. I smiled. Calm. To calm. I looked her in the eye and said, Good, because I've already packed your things. She laughed, thought I was joking, until I handed her the folder. Inside was a printed copy of the photo from the cloud, the dinner receipt, a timeline of her team, meetings, and a notarized separation agreement. Her face turned ghost white, her jaw dropped. But I wasn't done, because the final thing inside that folder was a little note I wrote that morning when I sensed she was about to do exactly what she did. It read, Your bags are in the car. Your replacement key card has been deactivated. Good luck on your date. Her hands trembled. Shh. She looked like a deer caught in headlights. But me? I stood up, walked into the kitchen, poured myself a drink, and left her sitting there, silent for the first time in years. When I left her sitting there at the table, staring at that folder like it had just detonated her reality, I expected. Yelling, screaming, maybe even for her to deny everything and go into damage control. That's what Dana always did when she didn't get her way. She spun the narrative until even I wasn't sure what had happened. But not this time. She didn't say a word. I walked past her, calm as ice, and went into the garage to double-check that her bags were still packed and loaded in the trunk of her car. I'd been preparing for this for a week, maybe longer, maybe from the moment she stepped out that night. On the porch in the cold, whispering into her phone while I pretended to sleep. That night, I started noticing everything I hadn't let myself admit. The way she locked her screen as soon as I walked in, how she started showering twice a day but never let me near her afterward. The perfume I smelled that wasn't hers, the way she'd laugh at messages she never explained. So I became methodical, quiet, like a scientist observing a subject. I wasn't going to lose my mind or dignity screaming at her. I was going to gather facts. I had screenshots, timestamps, and synced phone records. I didn't hack anything, just paid attention. I didn't need spyware to see the truth. She left her pattern out in the open. The so-called date she mentioned, that was just the final confirmation I needed. She didn't confess because she felt guilty. She did it because she believed I was too spineless to do anything about it. She was wrong. When I came back from the garage, she was still sitting there, gripping the edge of the table like the world was spinning around her. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "You thought I'd beg, didn't you?" She tried to speak, stutter something about how it wasn't what it looked like, that she just wanted to explore feelings and find herself. I stopped her cold. "Dana, stop. I know about Marcus." She flinched so hard it was like I'd slapped her. That name hadn't passed my lips until now, but I'd seen it on the receipt, heard it whispered in her sleep one night, saw it in a stupid heart emoji next to a text that popped up while she was in the shower. She never knew I saw it, but I did. Her eyes welled up. For a second I thought she was going to lie again, twist things. But then she did something I didn't expect. She broke. "I didn't mean for it to go that far," she said quietly. "It was just supposed to be drinks. I thought I was bored. I thought maybe I needed to feel something." I leaned back against the wall, arms crossed. "You needed to feel something? So you gambled 11 years? She nodded slowly and then whispered, "Are you going to tell everyone?" I raised an eyebrow. "Tell who?" "Your parents, who still think I'm the boring husband who never takes risks? Your sister, who once told me you'd never find a man better than me? Or your friends, who thought Marcus was just your work mentor and you're afraid of being seen? That's what scares you more than losing me." She started crying then. Not loud sobs, the quiet, trembling kind. She realized she wasn't in control anymore, that the script she thought she was writing had been hijacked. I didn't yell. I didn't throw things. I just said, "The locks are changed. Can stay in a hotel tonight. Don't worry, I've canceled. The joint credit cards. You're not paying for your next date with my money?" She froze again, but I wasn't done. I went to the living room, grabbed the USB drive I had left out in plain sight. She saw it in my hand and looked at me like I'd just disarmed a bomb or armed one. "What is that?" she asked. "It's your work laptop. Cloned it. It's that file you accidentally uploaded to our cloud." It wasn't the only one. "Marcus is married, isn't he?" Her face said everything. "I think his wife might want to see the team building folder. Don't worry, I haven't sent it yet." Dana's expression crumbled into something I didn't even recognize. Any more fear, shame, powerlessness? For once I had the upper hand, and I wasn't swinging wildly. I was calm, controlled, silent, and it was destroying her more than any scream ever could. "Curtis, please," she whispered. "I didn't mean." Did I cut her off? Every damn thing I've done this week I meant. She reached for my arm. I stepped back. "Don't," I said. "Just go." And she did. Not a word, not a glance back. Just the quiet click of the door and the sound of a woman who thought she'd win, walking. Away into the night alone. The door clicked shut, and for the first time in months, the house went silent. No voice humming from the kitchen, no buzzing phone on the counter, no background noise of someone laughing softly at messages they wouldn't explain. Just stillness. And me, standing in the middle of it all, surrounded by a life I built for two. Now occupied by one, I didn't cry. That surprised me. I expected to break down the second she left. But instead, I stood there, hands still resting on the doorknob, and just breathed. Deep, controlled. It didn't feel like the end of a marriage. It felt like stepping out of a storm I hadn't even realized I was trapped in. A storm where I was always the one holding the umbrella while she danced in the rain with someone else. I poured myself another drink and walked upstairs. Her side of the bed was still unmade. Her perfume still clung to the sheets. I didn't touch it. I didn't want to. Instead, I sat at my desk and opened the folder I never thought I'd need. The one labeled "Just in Case." Inside were copies of everything notarized, time-stamped. I had consulted a lawyer 2 weeks before she confessed. Something about the way she started getting distant in conversations made me feel like I was walking toward a cliff with no idea where the edge was. The lawyer didn't ask many questions. He just said, "Document. Be smart. Be quiet." And that's what I did. I documented every late night. Every trip she suddenly had to take on loan. every bank statement that didn't quite add up. Even the time she claimed she went to visit her mother, but her GPS history had her parked outside Marcus's apartment for over 6 hours. I never confronted her. Then I just saved it, filed it, waited. Some would say that's obsessive, maybe. But when you feel a knife being slowly twisted into your back, you stop asking why and start preparing for when. That night, after she left, I did something I hadn't done in over a year. I slept deep, dreamless, but the next morning, everything started shifting. I woke up to 5 missed calls, 3 texts, all from Dana. The last one read, "Please talk to me. I made a mistake. Don't do anything rash." Please, I didn't reply. Instead, I checked my email. It was a message from an anonymous address. Subject line, "Your wife and my husband." My stomach dropped. Inside were 4 attachments. Photos, screenshots. One of Dana and Marcus in a bar, her hand on his thigh. One of them walking into a hotel. And a message from a woman named Alana, who turned out to be Marcus's wife. She had seen Dana's name pop up one too many times, dug through Marcus's backup phone while he was showering, found everything. She thanked me for not going public yet, said she'd like to meet, share information. She wasn't after revenge, just the truth. Said she had a child. Said Dana wasn't the only one who destroyed a family. That hit me harder than I thought it would. It was never just about Dana cheating. It was the ripple. The lives that got bent and broken because she wanted to feel something. Wasn't just a man picking up the pieces of my own life. I was staring at a woman who might have done the same to someone else's child, someone else's home. I agreed to meet Alana, not for revenge, but because I needed to know the full truth. Before I left the house that day, I went into our closet and pulled out the box Dana had once given me on our 5-year anniversary. Inside were photos of our wedding, letters we wrote each other before we said, "I do." She called me her safe place in that letter, said she'd never known peace until me. I stared at that line for a long time and then I left. Not loud, just tired. Because I realized I had given her everything. Peace, stability, love. And somehow, she had confused comfort with boredom. She wanted chaos, adrenaline, sparks. I gave her loyalty. She went looking for fireworks. So I took the box, closed it, and locked it away. Not out of spite, out of closure. Then I grabbed my keys and left for the meeting. What I didn't know yet was that Alana had something to show me. Something that would make even Dana's betrayal feel like the tip of a very dark iceberg. Wasn't sure what to expect when I pulled into the cafe parking lot. Honestly, a part of me thought Alana might be some bitter stranger looking to lash out, or worse, just another liar looking to stir chaos. But when I walked in and saw her at the corner table, sipping coffee, staring out the window like she was, trying to remember how her life got here, I understood instantly. She looked like me, worn out, hollow-eyed, betrayed, but too tired to be angry anymore. I introduced myself. She stood and shook my hand like we were old friends meeting under a flag of mutual disaster. She didn't waste time. No chit-chat, no awkward pauses. Just reached into her purse, pulled out a worn leather binder, and said, "You're going to want to see this before anything else." She slid the binder across the table like it was evidence in a courtroom. Inside, hundreds of printed text messages between Dana and Marcus, color-coded by time and location and intimacy. She had done her homework. The messages weren't just flirtatious. They were downright strategic. They talked about me, about how predictable I was, how safe I made her feel, but how dead it all seemed, how Marcus was the only spark she had left. One message read, "He still doesn't suspect. I came home late last night smelling like you, and he kissed me goodnight." My stomach twisted. I closed the binder and looked up at Alana. "How long has this been going on?" I asked. She didn't flinch. Almost 9 months. Corporate retreat. I couldn't go because our kid had the flu. Paquette went alone. That's when he met Dana in person. I think they'd talked before, but that weekend, that's when the affair became real. I didn't even know what to say. 8 9 months. Nearly a year of lies. While I was grocery shopping, fixing her car, folding her laundry, she was falling in love. With someone else's husband. Or maybe she wasn't. Maybe it was never about love. Maybe it was just about adrenaline, about doing something reckless behind the back of someone who trusted her blindly. Alana pulled out her phone and scrolled for a moment, then turned the screen toward me. "This one hurt the most," she said. It was a photo of my wife in our kitchen, wearing my old college hoodie, laughing, a cup of coffee in her hand, and Marcus. In the background, shirtless, taking the picture. I stared at it for a long time. I knew exactly when that was taken. I had a work conference in Chicago that weekend. I'd FaceTimed Dana from my hotel room, and she told me she was spending the weekend relaxing with books and wine. She had wine, all right. And a man in my house. "In my bed," I muttered. "He was in my damn bed." Alana nodded. "I didn't show you this to hurt you, Curtis. I showed you this so you'd understand what kind of people we're dealing with. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't one bad decision. Built a routine out of lying to us." The weight of that hit me hard. It's not just the betrayal, the planning, the deliberate effort it took to maintain the lie. It wasn't just cheating. It was an operation. I leaned back, stared at the ceiling for a moment, then asked the question I was almost afraid to know the answer to. "Does he know you found out?" She hesitated. "Not yet. I've been quiet, gathering everything, waiting for the right moment." Nodded slowly. "Good. Keep him guessing. Let him feel what it's like to be in the dark." We sat in silence for a while. Just two strangers sitting across from each other, trying to figure out what pieces of their lives were still salvageable. She asked if I had kids. I shook my head. She looked relieved. "Be glad, at least you can walk away clean." That hit harder than anything else, she said. Walk away clean. That was the first time it really clicked. I could walk away. I wasn't chained to Dana by custody battles or co-parenting agreements. I had the luxury of cutting the cord and burning the bridge. And for the first time, I wanted to fully, not just emotionally, legally, permanently. Alana finished her coffee, packed up her binder, and stood. "I'll send you everything electronically. If you need anything, reach out. I think we're going to need each other to get through this." I thanked her, and we parted ways. But as I walked back to my car, something shifted in me. I wasn't just a man trying to survive anymore. I was starting to think about what justice would look like. Not revenge, that's easy, but consequences. Accountability. If Dana thought she was just going to pivot out of this with some cheap apology and a few tears, she was wrong. Because while she was preparing for a date with her lover, I was preparing for something far more permanent. And the next move would be mine. 2 days passed before Dana showed up again. I hadn't answered her messages. I hadn't picked up any of her calls. She'd left voicemails, some cold, some pleading, each one sounding more frantic than the last. But I stayed quiet. I needed time, not to think I already knew what I was going to do, but to prepare. The day she came back, I was sitting in the living room going through a checklist. It's not an emotional one, a legal one. It's financial accounts, passwords, utilities, property titles. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of catching me off guard. I'd already met with the lawyer again, already initiated the separation proceedings. She didn't know that yet, not fully. Just thought I was hurt and sulking, licking my wounds like some wounded animal in the dark. Wrong. She walked in without knocking, like she still lived there. That annoyed me more than anything. She hadn't lived in this house since the night she dropped her little "I have a date" bomb. She'd forfeited the right to keys, access, and definitely the illusion of control. I had the locks changed the next day, but she must have gotten in through the garage keypad I'd forgotten to disable. My mistake. One I'd correct before nightfall, when she stepped into the living room and saw me sitting there with a manila folder in my lap. Ah! She was seeing a stranger. And maybe she was, because the Curtis she knew, the one who made excuses for her coldness, who apologized when she snapped, who waited patiently while she drifted farther into some emotional abyss, he was gone. "Hey," she said, like we were on a break and she was just checking in. I said nothing. She sat down across from me and waited for me to speak. I didn't. The silence stretched long enough that she started squirming. "I know you're mad," she began, "and you have every right to. B, I didn't handle it right. I should have told you sooner what I was feeling." I let her talk. I wanted to see how far she'd go before admitting the actual truth, but of course she didn't. She kept using vague words, disconnected, confused, unsure, like she hadn't been sneaking around with another man for nearly a year, like I hadn't. "Seen the pictures? Like I didn't have evidence of everything?" She finally said it. "Marcus and I, it was a mistake. It was stupid. I wasn't thinking clearly, but it's over." I smiled slightly. "You're right. It is over." Her eyes lit up for a second. She thought I was forgiving her. Then I slid the manila folder across the table. "What's this?" she asked. "The divorce agreement." Her hands trembled as she opened it. "You're serious?" I nodded once. "You don't live here anymore, Dana. I let you walk out that night, and I'm not letting you back in. Not physically, not legally, not emotionally." She blinked fast, then set the papers down. "Curtis, come on. You're not this cold. I know you. You're hurt, but—" "No," I cut her off. "You knew the man who bent over backward to keep you happy. The one who ignored red flags because he believed in vows. The guy who stayed loyal while you were screwing someone else in our home. That Curtis? He doesn't exist anymore. And honestly, I should have killed him off a long time ago." She looked stunned. Then came the waterworks, full breakdown mode. The kind of crying that was less about remorse and more about losing control. She wasn't sorry she hurt me. She was sorry she lost her grip on me. "You don't understand what I was going through," she sobbed. "I felt invisible. You were always so focused on work and routines and your spreadsheets, and—" I laughed, just once. Sharp, dry. "Yeah, while I was building a life with you, you were sneaking out to destroy it. And now you're upset because I finally stopped giving you what you never deserved in the first place." She stood up, face flushed. "You don't have to be cruel." "Not being cruel," I said, standing too. "I'm being honest. Something you stopped doing a long time ago." She picked up her purse and started toward the door. But before she left, she turned back, her voice shaking. "Does Marcus's wife know?" That caught me off guard. I didn't expect her to ask. I met her eyes. She does. She's planning her own exit, quietly, strategically, like I did. Dana's shoulders slumped. That was the moment she realized the fantasy had crumbled. It wasn't just about me anymore. Her affair wasn't a private escape. It was a wrecking ball that smashed through 2 homes, 2 lives. And she wasn't just losing a husband. She was about to be exposed to the world. When the door closed behind her, I walked straight to the garage keypad and disconnected it. Then I poured myself a coffee, sat back down, and emailed Alana everything. I promised. I wasn't afraid of Dana anymore, and I sure as hell wasn't going to protect her secrets. The calm didn't last long. 2 days after I handed Dana the divorce papers and shut the door on what was left of our marriage, the retaliation began. I knew her too well to believe she'd walk away quietly. Dana wasn't the type to accept consequences. She was the type who'd try to rewrite the narrative until she was the victim of the story. And true to form, she didn't wait long before trying to flip the script. It started with mutual friends texting me weird questions, vague ones. "Hey man, heard you and Dana are going through something rough. Everything okay? We're sorry to hear." She found out about what you did. What I did? I didn't respond. I let the storm build a bit because I knew where this was headed. Dana had started spinning her version, that I was cold, emotionally distant, probably cheating, and had shut down long before she ever did anything. That I blindsided her with divorce papers when all she wanted was to talk. It was sickening how quickly some people bought it. The first time I saw one of her posts on social media, I nearly laughed out loud. It was a soft focus photo of her staring into the distance, captioned, "Sometimes people leave you when you're at your lowest and call it strength." There were crying emojis in the comments. Support. Sympathy. It was a masterclass in manipulation. But I didn't panic. I didn't post rebuttals or try to defend myself publicly because I wasn't playing checkers anymore. I was playing chess, quietly, strategically. And every move I made was deliberate. The next time she tried something, it was legal. She had her attorney send mine a letter requesting a temporary financial agreement to cover her rent, her expenses. An emotional hardship? She wanted spousal support from the man she cheated on, from the man she lied to, humiliated, and betrayed. I met with my lawyer the same afternoon. He leaned back in his chair, hands folded, and said, "It's offensive, but not unusual. She's testing boundaries, trying to see what she can get away with." I slid him a USB drive. Okay. On here is every transaction from the last 6 months. Hotel bookings under her name, charges she tried to hide, credit card statements showing she used, our joint account to buy gifts for Marcus, and even payments she made for an Airbnb they rented while I was visiting my mom in Arizona. And don't worry, it's all time-stamped, verified, and cross-referenced with her phone's location history. I was thorough. My lawyer raised his eyebrows. "You're not just ready, you're dangerous." He filed a motion to block the support claim the next day, citing marital misconduct, misuse of joint funds, and ethical breach. The paperwork spoke louder than any social media sob story ever could. But what really broke the illusion was what happened next. Alana, Marcus's wife, went public. She didn't name Dana directly, but she posted a long, dignified statement about betrayal, trust, and how her husband had compromised not just a marriage, but a family. She included photos of her child, explained what the past year had been like from her perspective, and ended the post with this: "To the woman who smiled in my face and slept with my husband behind my back, you didn't just take something from me, you exposed everything broken in yourself. I hope whatever you were chasing was worth it." It went viral in our social circle within hours. Everyone knew who she meant. And suddenly the comments on Dana's page weren't so supportive anymore. People started asking questions, peeling back the layers, wondering if maybe the quiet, boring guy who never aired his laundry in public wasn't the villain in this story after all. I wasn't watching this unfold out of spite. I wasn't sitting back with popcorn, relishing the drama. No, I was watching it like someone watching a controlled demolition. The building I had once lived in being brought down floor by floor, brick by brick. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I needed to make sure it didn't fall on me. Dana tried one last move that week. She showed up at my office. I came back from lunch to find her waiting in the lobby, eyes wide, hands wringing nervously. The receptionist had already called security when I walked in. Dana tried to wave them off. "I just need 5 minutes," she pleaded. I looked her straight in the eye and said, calm as ever, "You don't work here. You're not family, and you're not invited. Don't ever show up at my job again." She reached for my arm. "You're unraveling," I said quietly, "and I'm not going down with you." I turned and walked past her without another word. By the time the elevator doors closed behind me, I knew I was finally free. Not because she was gone, but because I no longer cared if she came back. And from that moment on, she had no more power. A week passed. The silence was starting to feel like peace. No more calls, no more texts, no pops at my office. Dana had finally gotten the message. Or maybe her attorney had warned her to back off before she lost more than just her marriage. Whatever the reason, her absence was the first real breath of oxygen I'd taken in months. I spent those days rebuilding myself slowly. I started jogging again, cooking proper meals, not because anyone was coming home, but because I wanted to. I rearranged the living room, donated half the furniture, got rid of every frame that had a photo of her in it. It was like clearing smoke out of a burned-down building. The smell lingered, but I could finally see the walls again. Then one morning a letter showed up. No name on the front, no return address, just my full name printed neatly in block letters on an envelope that didn't look like junk or a bill. I hesitated before opening it. Maybe it was from her. Maybe this was some desperate last ploy, a handwritten apology or threat, or whatever her twisted version of closure looked like. But it wasn't from Dana. It was from someone named Lena, and as I read the first line, my skin went cold. "You don't know me, but I know your wife." I believe she was involved with my fiancé. His name was Jordan. He passed away 6 months ago. My eyes stopped on that line, passed away. I kept reading. Jordan was a quiet man, loyal, sweet. He worked in IT and did part-time consulting from home. We were supposed to be married in September. 2 weeks before he died, I found strange messages on his laptop. The files were deleted, but I'm a software engineer. I recovered them. First, I thought they were just fantasy chat logs, maybe even AI roleplay. But then I saw your wife's name, and her photos, and her face reel. One sent timestamps I couldn't ignore. There were printed screenshots attached. My hands trembled as I turned the page, and there it was, Dana, under a different username, chatting with a man named Jay Halt, flirting in ways that crossed any imaginable line. The tone was different. From her messages with Marcus, these weren't just romantic or sexual. These were deep, emotional, like she was laying out her soul to someone. I wish I'd met you first. I don't love him anymore. I feel alive when I talk to you. My throat tightened. She had told another man that, a different one, someone who died before I even knew she was cheating. Lena's letter continued, I debated whether to reach out. I wasn't sure what good it would do, but something in me needed to tell you that it wasn't just your marriage she touched. It was mine too. I don't blame her for Jordan's death. He died in an accident. But I hate that she haunted the end of his life, that she made him think it was okay to lie to me. She made him dream about a life he'd never have. I guess I wanted you to know you weren't the only one. I sat there for a long time. No words, just the hum of the refrigerator and the sound of my heart pounding like I'd just been told my house was on fire again. Only this time, it had started burning before I ever smelled the smoke. She hadn't just cheated on me once. She'd done it twice at least. And who knew how many more I hadn't discovered? It wasn't about Marcus anymore. He was just the one who got caught, the one whose wife was smart enough to trace the steps back. But Dana, Dana was a serial arsonist with a match in each hand. She burned bridges just to feel the warmth. That evening, I went for a long drive. No destination. I passed the diner where we'd had our first real fight, the dog park where she once pretended to love animals because I did, and finally our old apartment from before the house where things had still felt real, simple, honest. I parked across the street, turned off the engine, and just watched the windows. A new couple lived there now. I saw a woman making dinner, a man laughing as he popped open a wine bottle. For a second I envied them, not because they were happy, but because they didn't know yet how quickly happiness could rot. When I got home, I placed Lena's letter in the fire-safe box along with Alana's evidence. I wasn't collecting these out of obsession. I was collecting them because I didn't want to forget. Forget how much I gave. Forget how icily she discarded it. Forget how far I'd come to claw my way back. The next morning, I made an appointment with my lawyer again. It's time not to discuss the past, but to finalize the end. I didn't want her name anymore. Not on the mortgage, not on the car, not on my life. And once that was done, once the last paper was signed, I'd finally be free to start something Dana never gave me permission to seek the future. 3 months later, the final documents arrived. Signed, stamped, irreversible. My marriage to Dana was officially dissolved. 11 years? Summarized in a packet of legalese and notarized initials. When the delivery driver handed it to me, I didn't flinch. I didn't even hesitate. I simply thanked him, took the envelope inside, and laid it on the kitchen table. No drama, no music swelling in the background, just quiet. Was the kind of quiet I welcomed? Wasn't the silence of betrayal, it was the silence of peace. A few days later, I changed my last account password with her name in it. Deleted the old email she had access to. Finally removed our joint Spotify playlist. It's strange, the things that tie you to someone. Not just the big stuff like a house or taxes, but the tiny, stupid things. Like a shared playlist that used to be romantic, and now just plays like a funeral soundtrack to a life that no longer exists. I burned one last box. It's the notes, the printed messages, the photos I'd kept, not out of sentiment, but for evidence. I didn't need them anymore. I wasn't afraid of her anymore. I didn't need proof. I had peace. That was my proof. In that peace, it made space for something else, something new. Her name is Avery. I met her at the library of all places. We both reached for the same book, an old paperback on hiking trails in Colorado. She smiled, I smiled. Nothing earth-shattering. Just two strangers talking about elevation and wildflowers and boots that don't blister. She didn't ask what I did for a living. She didn't tell me her life story in 5 minutes. She just talked to me like I was human. Not a project, not a paycheck, not a placeholder. Over the next few weeks, we met for coffee, walks, no pressure, no pretending. I told her about my past, not the graphic parts, not the headlines, just the truth. That I'd been married, that it ended in betrayal, that I wasn't looking for a quick fix or a rebound, just clarity. She respected that. She told me she'd been through her own version of hell, a fiancé who ghosted 2 months before their wedding, a career shift that left her doubting everything. And yet here she was, still kind, still present, still willing to laugh with Avery. I didn't feel like I had to impress anyone. I didn't feel like I had to watch my back. There were no coded messages, no secret tabs, no gut instincts screaming something's wrong, just calm, just real. One Saturday morning, we hiked the trail from that same book we both reached for. At the summit, wind blowing through the trees, she turned to me and said, "You're nothing like what I expected." I laughed. "What were you expecting?" She thought for a second. "Someone bitter, someone guarded. But you're not. You're open." I paused, then said, "That's because I spent a long time being closed." And she smiled in that way that says she understood exactly what I meant without needing to ask. We sat on a rock, drinking lukewarm coffee, looking out over the valley. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to brace myself for disappointment. I didn't feel like I had to doubt the next move. I was exactly where I was supposed to be, Dana. I haven't heard from her since she tried to smear me and failed. I don't know where she is. I don't care. She can rewrite her version of the story all she wants, but I'm not in that chapter anymore. I closed the book, set it down, and started writing a new one. One where I'm not a supporting character